So it's been a day all about virtual reality and augmented reality, and I thought, well, we can't possibly talk about all of that stuff for the future without ending the day with, yeah, but there's more future coming. So I thought I'd talk about that. Yeah, but there's more future around the corner, because I think it's important to have the whole story and thinking about the lifetime of a course or a set of instructional materials. You know, it's not 12 months, is it? It's 3, 4, 5, 27 years in some cases that things get used. So let's kind of look at the length of it. But before we race through that, I've got a clicker that doesn't work. Okay. I've got one in my back that does, so let me just switch over it while we're going. Look at the pretty slide while I find my clicker. No, but this one's good. Okay, so we're in a fourth industrial revolution. So this is what is coming out of things like Davos and stuff like that. People are talking about the fact that we're heading into our fourth industrial revolution. So the first one's all around steam, water, mechanical propulsion. And then we moved into the world of mass labour, mass production of electricity. Then we went to this kind of electronics and IT age, and suddenly we're squishing time down, because we're now from the 1970s to the 2017s in this world that people are talking about, a blurring between the physical and the digital divide. And we know that, don't we? Because whenever you walk down the street, people are doing that. I did that this morning on the train over the Harbour Bridge. I've lived in Sydney for 7 years. I've got to that point now where I don't look up out the window every time I go over the Harbour Bridge. It's really sad. Whereas I did today, walking from the bus station to here, look up in the trees. It's the first time I've been on that route, and there was a sign saying, look out for koalas. So I did, and there weren't any. Oh. Now, I guess that probably you're used to that kind of thing, so you don't notice it. And that's the interesting thing about this industrial age, is that they called it out at Davos and said, the world is in this fourth industrial revolution, but we don't really notice because we're in it. I bet people in the steam age didn't realise that they were in the steam age as it was changing. But I don't think it's all about this. It's not all about futuristic worlds where we only live in a digital place. It's about the merging of our two worlds together. And so that's the world that our students are going to go to. So here's an exercise for you. Who saw this advert? Social media food stylist. This is from last year. Social media food stylist is a job title now. I mean, we see these things and go, ha ha ha, somebody's going to be a robot repair technician. These things exist. This was Simon Johnson. Do you know how you applied for the job? Hashtag, hi me Simon, on Instagram. Did you say Twitter? Twitter is so last week. You had to put up your resume, and your resume was your best food photos. And Ali Lau was the person that got that job, and she's now their social media food stylist. The qualifications, the resume, even the currency that we're using is completely different in this digital world. And I'm not talking about Bitcoin. I'm talking about my daughter who left a university this year when she got a degree and has started working for what is technically known as a startup. It's a startup that's only got 15 million users. That's why it's still only a startup. And their launch party in Australia, they invited people to come to the launch party. But do you know what the ticket cost was? 10,000 Instagram followers. If you had 10,000 followers, you were let in. If you had 1 million followers, they paid you to come to the launch party. And they really did pay people to attend as long as they had enough Instagram followers. This is the world that we're in. And so, what other jobs are going to exist in 5 years' time? Well, some of the jobs I think we've seen around today, you can imagine. Now this list, I went out to all my contacts on Twitter and said, haha, social media food stylist, what's that all about? Here's the list they came back with. I said, what jobs might your children be doing when they leave school or university? Drone pilot, robot coach, chatbot mediator. I think we've already got some of those. Thing detective. That was an interesting one. They said, you know this Internet of Things thing? when you plug in your Alexa and you say, hey Alexa, and it can't understand you because there's something in your home network in the way. You know, getting the things, sorting themselves out. Claims adjuster for self-driving vehicles. Pretty sure that job won't exist. That will be automated before it even exists. Education Solutions Exec Repair Technician. I thought that was a bit weird until they pointed out to me that that's my job title. It said, that job is the person that repairs the robot that's going to replace you. Lecturer, robot repair technician. How does that feel? Chief Disruption Officer, we got some of those already. Digital Archaeologist. Identity Recovery Specialist, we need some of those now. Human Robotics Interface Specialist. Device Shutdown Specialist, we need some of those, although I notice you don't need so many of those. Somebody to tell you when to switch off. And AI trainer, we've got people doing that already. These are the jobs of the future, and I think you've been seeing some insight into some of those things as you've been putting on your headsets and listening to some of the stories today. Now today we've talked about AR and VR, but I want to talk about MR. So AR, augmented reality, VR, virtual reality, and MR, mixed reality. And that's about this blurring between the physical and the digital divide. Now, we had a little bit earlier, didn't we, for those people that were in the demo session about what the difference between AR and VR. I thought I might go straight into the test and ask if you remember, but I thought we'd do a quick revision. First of all, here's my take on the difference between them. This is VR. Now, this is a really unfortunate way of showing it, but I just wanted to make the point. Virtual reality is about seeing on a screen something that isn't real. It might be a video picture, it might be a 360-degree video, it might be a cartoon world, it might be a Minecraft world. It's pixel-based. Yeah? So that's our world of virtual reality. Second, augmented reality is our real world with some additional information. You know, like the Google Glass example, where I've got a little box that might tell me I'm only 2 minutes to the south of coffee. Oh, and we've only got 15 minutes to go. Or that student over there is somebody that I want to pay extra attention to. That's augmented reality. It's taking the view we have of the world and adding some information to it. Mixed reality is different again. Mixed reality is taking our view of the world and adding something into it, not onto it. So, taking this scenario, it could be that we've got somebody interfacing with a computer in a room. Or it could be that we've got virtual students sitting in the room and I can see them just as clearly as I can see you sitting in chairs. This whole front row is full of people. And we could even be having interactions between the virtual people and the real people. That's mixed reality when you're taking your real world and you're mixing it with the digital world. You're not fencing yourself off from your real world, you're bringing the digital world in. So somebody could be sitting in that chair. Okay, so here's the test bit. Here's 4 different scenarios. See if you can work out which each of these scenarios are. So we'll start in the top left. Anybody want to hazard a guess at what we're looking at? VR, AR, or MR? VR. Yeah, and it's almost identical to what you've been seeing, isn't it? Now, we're doing a lot of development at Microsoft in that space as well. 2 things we're focusing on. One is, how can we build the capabilities to build virtual reality worlds into Windows so that it's easier for people to create the virtual reality worlds. And the second is, how do we bring the cost of headsets down? So a lot of consumer headsets that do virtual reality are now in the kind of $400 or $500 price range, and that's because we've been focusing on getting some standards in there and working with the consumer manufacturers, people like Acer and Lenovo, to build those headsets. Okay, let's stop the puppy and let's go over this way. Oh, great, we have 2 running at the same time. So this one over on the right hand side, VR, AR or MR? There's no wrong answer. B? Yeah, I think so. We're not looking at the world and adding information to it. This one down in the bottom left given up. It should be sticking a nice label on there. Could be having a problem with the fact I'm playing 4 videos on the screen at the same time. Do you think? Let me pause. It's maybe a little bit overambitious to ask PowerPoint to do this. Here you go. So this is augmented reality. It's our view of the real world with additional information on it. And in some cases, that information might stick to an object. In other cases, it might be on a screen, and as we move ahead, it moves with us. And then the last example. Oops. Let's pause that. Okay, so by a process of multiple choice, anybody want to have a go at what this might be? So this is mixed reality. And the difference here is 2 things. One is that is represented in our physical world. We're not taking it somewhere else. We're here. It's there in front of us. And the second is you have people collaborating over things. So you might have multiple people seeing exactly the same thing. And I think that's a really important aspect to think about when we think about teaching and learning. Because how many of our learning experiences are collaborative experiences? Assessment today isn't, but our learning processes are collaborative. You talk about things, you look at things together. You know, you think about medical training, a bunch of students around a cadaver looking at it. And so we can't wall everybody off from those experiences. And so that's where mixed reality takes us to a next level. Okay, seen enough of you, goodbye, thank you. Oh, go away. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about examples of mixed reality. Now, we've created a device called a HoloLens. Has anybody here had a chance to put a HoloLens on? A few people. That's a mixed reality experience because it brings something, it's like looking through a really geeky set of sunglasses, but it brings holograms into your world, so it brings things to you. And so we see all these scenarios where it's being used. So let me talk through a couple of the scenarios. The first one is, there is some work being done in education. So this is some work from the US.
The HoloLens is absolutely the most amazing piece of technology. Within 5 seconds, I realized that the world had changed. It was an immediate realization that this is something exciting and we have to be a part of this. Seeing things in 3D is something that you could do before with some glasses. The thing that the HoloLens gives you is the ability to walk around those 3D objects and to really experience them as if they're in the room with you.
What is augmented reality? It is mixed reality. And what that means is
that collaboration thing, where you see people looking at the same thing from different angles.
But the digital content is inserted into the room as if it's actually there.
As a teacher, I can see what they're all looking at. And that's something that we think has real power.
It's actually opening up our interactions with each other.
The biggest drive is getting the anatomy curriculum completely done by the time we move into the new health education campus.
Today, we at the Cleveland Clinic are constructing a state-of-the-future health education campus. Our students will learn using the most forward-looking educational programs. HoloLens is a key part of this.
The actual act of dissection hasn't changed in generations. We have to be much more effective and efficient.
The biggest thing about medical school is there's just so much information and so much knowledge you're being asked to learn.
HoloLens is going to enable us to teach in an integrated way and to look at the body in ways they haven't been able to see it. It's sort of having X-ray vision, seeing through the skin.
My mind was just kind of blown, and when I tried it on, it was perfect. It's really hard to understand what the anatomy book's trying to tell you. So with the HoloLens, we can literally show you what's happening with the body.
We can look at how the heart moves, or look at how the brain processes information, how information flows around in our...
There's a really important point there about you can't sometimes get the information you need from a two-dimensional item. You've got to see the three-dimensional thing in order to be able to understand it. It's way more than just medical exam. But the other point that you see from those exercises is about that collaboration and communication between them. Oh, look at that. Oh, come around here and look at that. That experience that you get from a physical object, which we have to do with proxies at the moment. Now, where's it going to go next? Where else could we go with this kind of thing? Well, this is something coming out of the research labs. So this is idea that might turn into something that gets built into a product at some way. But we're really trying to push the envelope to say, well, what else could we do? The interesting thing is, I watched this video 7 or 8 times before I was able in my head to work out what was real and what was not real. And the example I'd say look for is there's a little wooden stool. It took me a few times to work out whether it is real or not in the video because of the way it operates. So this is holoportation.
Hi, today we're going to show you an exciting new technology that could fundamentally change the way that people will communicate in the future. Imagine being able to virtually teleport from one space to another in real time. Hey, Sergio, how does it feel like to be holoported?
They're researchers, not actors, you realise.
So Sergio is to wear his HoloLens device, and I'm going to wear mine. We can see each other in full 3D in real time. We can interact and communicate as if we're co-present. Sergio, can you walk around my space? Can you walk behind this chair? So we're doing everything to give the impression that Sergio and I are present in the same space. Sergio, let's just do a high five.
That's the point you realise that
Thank you,
researchers
Sergio.
So that's an example of where they're going to go. So what do we need to build for infrastructure to support things like that? We need to build holoportation spaces because you need a full 3D studio in order to be able to see somebody as an object and have them holoport to the other side of the world. Now today that seems slightly sci-fi, but think about it. If you'd shown somebody 20 years ago Skype and said, we're going to have a Skype session with an astronaut, or we're going to have a Skype session to somebody on the far side of the world, that would have seemed just as futuristic. And we are building those holographic studios right now. The people that are using them at the moment tend to be the gaming industry and a little bit the film industry. We have got people starting to do work in education with those holographic studios as well. Because it's way, way more than just pointing a camera at a person, because you need all the spatial information to go with it. And here's an example, something called HoloPatient. It's been developed by Pearson. And what I've got is a video of work they're doing around this. So what they're trying to do is using those holographic studios, trying to create virtual patients for students to be able to use and interact with, because it's a real challenge getting lots of people to come in and act in a certain way. The idea of what they're trying to create there is that truly immersive experience. Let me go back. So one of those 3 people in those photos is a hologram. Did you spot that? So he's a hologram, but he's sitting on the chair, right in front of the nurse. And the nurse is looking at him and seeing him in exactly the same way that we're seeing him. That blurring of the boundaries between the physical and the digital world, it's real. And that's what they're doing. I think that's being piloted at the moment in the university camera. Now, I said we're working with a bunch of manufacturers around how do we bring down the cost of those headsets. There's kind of a couple of things going on. The first is, how do you make low-cost virtual reality headsets? The second is, how do you enhance the experience? So how do you give the controllers and the awareness of the room that is around you, for example, so that you can digitally see the room as well as the digital assets. But that's still virtual reality. The third thing is, how do you get rid of the cable? Because as the ill experience today, if you get too far, somebody will nudge you back. because you're just about to step on the cable or pull it out. So how do you get rid of that? And that's what our solution to that when we built the HoloLens is that this. That's a complete Windows 10 computer running off battery just like a laptop. So it doesn't have any cables, everything is self-contained within that. But that's a more expensive device. So our quest is, well, how do we make those wireless headsets for low-cost devices as well? Because then you've got true freedom, haven't you? So let's pick some examples, because I said these are the kind of what next, stories from the future. But some of these things are being used already now in the commercial world. So people are taking these devices and creating mixed reality experiences for their staff to do their jobs. So let me lead you into a couple. First one is Tyson Krupp. They are a manufacturer of lifts.
Over 1 billion people ride elevators each day, which places the industry in a primary role to respond to the challenges of urbanization. ThyssenKrupp's mission is to drive the elevator industry now. We want to do better and want to really push the envelope for what we are doing.
We need to enable our people to use the latest technology possible and available, and HoloLens is such a device where we see potential to serve our customers better.
The introduction of HoloLens to our operations will empower the over 20,000 field service engineers in doing the job better, more efficient. Increasing availability of elevators and escalators makes the job more safe and more fun for our people as well.
The scenario we have developed is really about dispatching a service technician using HoloLens in very different kind of ways.
So as soon as the technician puts on his HoloLens, he already sees, I have a call here, I need to go to this elevator, and then actually sees a 3D picture of the elevator that he's going to work on, and then he can zoom into a part that will offer you also training opportunities.
He goes to the job site prepared, probably better prepared than ever before, because he has the relevant data available to him in the best format possible.
That first bit you could do with VR or a screen or anything, I think.
The technician putting on his HoloLens, looking at the elevator, sees the historical notes first, so what has actually happened with this elevator before. He already has all the information right there without having to look for it. It saves a lot of time and a lot of stress and effort.
Gets information on his virtual desktop about the task orders you have to carry out,
the latest safety alerts for the elevator.
He pulls on a 3D replication of that part, pulls it out in an exploded view, and can actually see which part is making the problem.
A major advantage of the HoloLens, of course, is that we are hands-free, and we never had that experience and the capability before.
In the past, the technician needed both of his hands to operate the laptop, and now he just has his HoloLens on.
One of the most important capabilities we see with HoloLens is that we can trigger a remote call to a subject matter expert. Call Heather.
Hey Jeff, how you doing?
I'm replacing the doorbird out here, but I kind of want you to check a couple things out.
Okay, let me take a look. The JP3 is in the right position, and your motor leads are disconnected, so you're good to go.
It takes a lot of stress out, saves a lot of time, and our field tests have shown that there's a huge potential to increase productivity with that. A job which normally takes 1 to 2 hours and maybe ends up with having the expert traveling to the site, we were able to carrying it out on the first.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because the job of a service engineer is going to fundamentally change. Eventually it's going to be going, here's the part you want to change. No, not that one over there. Because you'll be able to have that level of interaction. Here's another example from medicine.
CA Healthcare is the global training partner of choice to improve patient safety, and we do that by providing the most innovative training solutions based on simulation. Our customers are university, colleges, governments, medical device companies, hospitals. For centuries, people were relying on textbook and dissection and plastic models of the heart, and in a span of 20 years, we've seen that augmented reality on a 2D screen. And now what HoloLens has added is another layer. You're not looking at the augmented reality on a 2D screen. It's there, standing in midair. And now you can see these finite details, the relationship with many structures, and you can see them with all the range of what's normal but also with pathologies. So that's been a revolution.
What we see in this generation of learners is that they come to the classroom with a different set of skills, eager to interact with technology, eager to be immersed in their learning.
Like that.
As a healthcare provider, it's dangerous when we are into that learning curve. But now this has completely changed. We can practice on plastic and pixels and try things and make mistakes and see also all the different cases and the different challenges you can have. And then when you're ready, you really can go at the bedside and do these procedures on real patients.
Within a space of 2-3 weeks, we were up and running. We were displaying physiology into the HoloLens world there. It was spectacular. And the HoloLens, because of its optical characteristics, the doctor's viewing the internal tissues of the organ at the working distance between eyes and hands. You need extreme accuracy for that. HoloLens offers that.
The educational framework that we can add in this virtual environment is limitless. Now you're going to have the best teaching or learning experience ever, and you can do that remotely. So everybody is in the same virtual environment with the exact same world-renowned instructor, for example.
It's been proven in other fields that simulation actually leads to safer environments. We're bringing this technology to our students so that they're going to be better healthcare providers.
And in healthcare, learning by doing is really, really important, but I think it is in almost every other area, isn't it? You learn from practical experiences. It's just the consequences of mislearning by doing are a little bit more severe in healthcare. And so the first time you decide to do some of those operations, you better do them on a simulated patient. And, you know, I said that we've got to focus on how do we reduce the cost of the hardware around mixed reality to the hundreds of dollars. And part of that is because the HoloLens, with its kind of holographic experience, is a much more expensive device to build. But it turns out that that's only relative to what I think a consumer device might cost. It turns out that some of the dummies they use currently to do some of those experiences cost hundreds of thousands of dollars each. So how many experiences can you give your students? Well, how about if you just got one dummy that can do all of the different reactions because you just program those reactions onto it. So does anybody know whether this is AR, VR or MR? None. This is the real thing. This is the Frank Gehry building at UTS. This building has got nothing to do with AR, VR and MR other than it looks like it might be. But the interesting thing is, when they constructed this building, it highlighted the challenge that they have in architecture. The challenge they have in architecture is you can imagine the most amazing three-dimensional object, and then what do you have to do? Produce 2D plans so that the bricky and the sparky can produce it. They have to have a paper plan to work on. So what do you do when you have to produce a building like this? You have to produce detailed plans that says, on this layer the bricks go here, on this layer the bricks go here, on this layer the bricks go here. So your brickies that normally lay about 400 bricks a day go down to about 60 bricks a day when they're building a building like this, because they've got loads and loads and loads of paper plans. So what they're doing at RMIT is working out how to use mixed reality in order to be able to move architecture and construction into the 21st century, to go straight from 3D to 3D. And so they built their own Frank Gehry. Let me show you what it looks like. And let me show you how they do it. So there it is, two students using holograms. They built it out of wood. That's the holographic version. Here's the real version. Now, look what's happening here. This is the equivalent of your brickie doing 50 bricks an hour. The guy laying the bricks on the left-hand side has got a HoloLens on. What that is telling him is, that's where it goes. That's where it goes. That's where it goes. He doesn't look somewhere else to work out how the curve goes. He is just using the HoloLens to say, well, in relation to all those other things, that's where the next one goes. And no, you're a centimetre out, move it forward a bit. Construction of something like that as a model might take 4 or 5 days. The way this was actually done is the course lecturer left them alone for an afternoon, came back and found they'd done it. Unfortunately, he was going to say, I want you to glue it as well as nail it, which is why it's slightly wobbly, because they'd finished by the time he got back. But that was a prototype for how things are going to done in the future. And they're doing lots of other now, kind of architectural things that they couldn't do before, because before they had to turn it 2D after they created a 3D object in order to build the real 3D one. Let's go back. RMIT are talking about this at a few conferences at the moment. We've got the Microsoft Summit on the 14th of November. Alf is talking at the Microsoft Summit alongside Brian Cox. I think you're one after Brian Cox. Just put that on your resume forever now. I was the warm-up guy. Brian Cox was the warm-up guy for me. And they're talking at that conference. There's some other conferences that they're out talking about. It's fascinating to go and hear them because it's not just about the education process, it's actually about the whole construction process. And then talk to them about how they did this in their course. Because this technology wasn't invented 5 years ago when they first started writing the course. And they couldn't wait for all the approvals that they needed that might come in 5 years' time if they said, we need to use this. So their process to be able to iterate quickly on the product they were delivering, which is a 5-year course, has completely changed in order to be able to bring this stuff into their teaching and learning early on. That's one of the challenges you're going to have to cope with, isn't it? Because this stuff is changing really fast. The thing I say when I talk to IT people is our product life cycle in technology is way, way faster than your procurement cycle. So you can never buy anything. Because by the time you've decided to buy it, we've killed it and moved on to something else. Well, the same is going to be true from a teaching and learning perspective, isn't it? Because the pace of change is moving faster and faster all of the time. This is the world that we think your students are going to go into. It's also interesting to look at the other technologies that sit in here.
Penny walks in on location. She has to set up the space for a product unveil for a group of clients. Enter Microsoft HoloLens, the world's first untethered holographic computer. The device maps the room in order to construct a digital map of the space, allowing Penny to fill the room with holograms.
So we built this for commercial customers rather than for education customers. So we would show this to retailers and retailers would go, yeah, this is what we need. The interesting thing is when you look at that and go, well, if this is what retailers are buying now, what's it going to be like in 4 years' time when my graduates finish their degree? The other interesting thing here is the interactions between our actors and the technology, talking to bots, as opposed to, their normal interactions. And these intelligent agents are getting smarter and smarter all of the time. We're used to talking to Siri now, but how about if Siri is something that sits there but can take instructions? We've got a brilliant one. At our work, we have one called Enterprise Deep Intelligence Engine, Eddie. And I can say to Eddie, book me a meeting room tomorrow afternoon with Dan, and it will just pop it all in our diaries, find an empty meeting room, and book it for me. It knows where I'm based. That kind of smarts. Oh, there's that mixed thing of real people and virtual people.
Yeah, the space is driving me nuts.
Alright. How about a change of scenery?
So it's only like Skype on steroids, that activity. Oh, that's maybe a little bit more than Skype on steroids.
Inspiration from the cloud in 3 dimensions and all around you.
Some inspiration, please.
These bots help them interface with businesses. This one helps them find amazing 3D assets.
Let me ask you a question. What are the skills you need to operate in that world? Communication, collaboration skills we saw in action there, but 3D skills. The ability to work in 3 dimensions. Look at this. Our students are going to be in this world. And by this world, I mean there are 3 roles that I see in this world. There's the consumers, our 2 visitors to the gallery, who just come along, consume something and go away. We're kind of churning out the consumer generation, aren't we, at the moment? It's like spend all day glued to our screen watching YouTube. Or there's the creators, the painters around the outside, the YouTubers, the Instagrammers. We're kind of creating them as well, aren't we, at the moment? Has anybody got anybody Instagram famous in their family? In their course? in their lives? I mean, people spend hours just watching this stuff. YouTubers make masses of money. It's a career now. I'm a YouTuber. I'm a Minecraft YouTuber. Masses and masses of money. But the interesting one is there's a third role in here, and there are a lot less of them. There were in the 17th century, there were in the 6th century, and there are going to be in the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd century, which is the sculptor. Painters, 10 a penny. Sculptors, there aren't that many. The skills for the sculptor are going to be the skills that are going to survive in this mixed reality world. It's the ability to think spatially. It's the ability to think about 3 dimensions rather than 2 dimensions. To think about collaboration. To think about two-way communication. It's the sculptors are going to be the ones that walk away with the prize. Now, I think about this in a data sense. The people that understand data and algorithms, they're going to be the ones that are going to walk away with the prize, because they're going to be the ones that tell the 10,000 shelf stackers what to do. One algorithm. One bot creator is going to be the person that does the job of 50 call center operators. And I think in this world of mixed and virtual reality, the one to watch is the sculptors, the games designers, because they all think 3-dimensionally. They think in a way that other people don't. Those are going to be the people that are really going to make the future possible. So let me just finish with one last thing about technology. Now today we've looked at virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, that blending of the digital and the physical world. But there's another way to look at it, which is, well, all this smart technology that underlies this can do other things for us. So what I want to do is leave you with an example that has got nothing to do with virtual reality and mixed reality, but is solving a problem for an individual. The individual is a gentleman called Sakib. I work with 180,000 colleagues. Like you, I work with some of the smartest people on the planet. And I feel really dumb amongst those people sometimes. And working with Sakib, I feel really, really dumb. Sakib is partially sighted. You know how some of our best problems are solved by, the solutions come out of our smallest frustrations? So if you're partially sighted, you've got a lot of frustrations. And so, what he did was apply the technology we've been talking about all day to his particular problem. Now, we have a process in Microsoft called Hackathon Week. People can just stop work for a week and come up with an idea, form a team, try and build something. Some of those things turn into products, like Presentation Translator, which adds live subtitles to a PowerPoint slide and gives the audience the ability to translate those into their home language. It's a little hack project. Sakib's project, called Seeing Eye, is another one of those hack projects.
I'm Sakib Sheikh. I lost my sight when I was 7, and shortly after that I went to a school for the blind. And that's where I was introduced to talking computers, and that really opened up a whole new world of opportunities. I joined Microsoft 10 years ago as a software engineer. I love making things which improve people's lives, and one of the things I've always dreamt of since I was at university was this idea of something that could tell you at any moment what's going on around you.
I think it's a man jumping in the air doing a trick on a skateboard.
I teamed up with like-minded engineers to make an app which lets you know who and what is around you. It's based on top of the Microsoft Intelligence APIs, which makes it so much easier to make this kind of thing. The app runs on smartphones, but also on the Pivot Head smart glasses. When you're talking to a bigger group, sometimes you can talk and there's no response, and you think, is everyone listening really well, or are they half asleep? And you never know.
I see 2 faces. 40-year-old man with a beard looking surprised. 20-year-old woman looking happy.
The app can describe the general age and things that's most useful about the app is the ability to read out text.
Hello, good afternoon. Here's your menu.
Great, thank you. I can use the app on my phone to take a picture of the menu, and it's going to guide me on how to take that correct photo.
Move the camera to the bottom right and away from the document.
And then it'll recognize the text. Read me the headings.
I see appetizers, salads, paninis, pizzas, pastas.
Years ago, this was science fiction. I never thought it would be something that you could actually do. But artificial intelligence is improving at an ever faster rate. And I'm really excited to see where we can take this. As engineers, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, building on top of what went before. And in this case, we've taken years of research from Microsoft Research to pull this off.
I think it's a young girl throwing an orange frisbee in the park.
For me, it's about taking that far-off dream and building it one step at a time. I think this is just the beginning.
That's a one-week hack project. That's now been turned into a product. You can download it. Unfortunately, it's only in the US and the UK iTunes stores at the moment. So you have to change your store to those, but you can download Seeing Eye. And it's really interesting because Sakib is partially sighted. I'm getting older. That app that helps you read menus, I need that now. I didn't need that last year. It's really interesting how you can look at some of this really smart, intelligent stuff, this amazing technology, and then go, actually, there's this small little problem that we can use it to help us with. Arthur C. Clarke's third law was, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. We are definitely at that stage now, and hopefully what I've given you is a bit of an insight into where we might be going next. Thank you very much. Always the dangerous point there.
If anyone's got any burning questions? No? Or maybe we'll just stay tuned because there is so much going on in this arena. It is crazy.